All right, let's dive right into this explainer. What we're decoding today might look on the surface like your standard, petty internet feud, but it is actually a massive, profound collision of philosophies about the very future of human governance. We're looking at a battle between two completely different ways of understanding and confronting the systems that run our world. On one side, an approach built on storytelling and critique, and on the other, one built on hard, executable code. Just look at this visceral hook to kick things off. We've got a direct, 48-hour copyright ultimatum issued on YouTube by science fiction critic Damien Walter, demanding a video be taken down. And right below it, we see the response from systems architect Kyle McLean-Smith, who goes by Best Ape. Smith doesn't just push back here. He hits back with a wild accusation, literally saying, "Okay, MI6," framing Walter not just as a creator defending copyright, but as an operative aligned with state-level intelligence. I mean, this isn't just about a video clip anymore, right? It's a full-on proxy war. Which brings us to Section 1, the Thiel's surveillance paradox. To really get why these two are going at it so intensely, we gotta zoom out to their massive, shared target of critique. Both of them have their sights set directly on billionaire venture capitalist Peter Thiel and the broader architecture of Silicon Valley. Peter Thiel is, frankly, a staggering walking contradiction, a paradox that both Walter and Smith totally recognize. On one hand, you have Thiel, the Orthodox Christian, who publicly fears a totalitarian antichrist system, a global world government using tech to crush individual liberty. But then, on the flip side, he is actively funding transhumanist pursuits to engineer physical immortality on Earth. It's wild. He fears the machine while simultaneously building its most powerful tools. So the crazy part is, both the critic and the architect actually agree on what Thiel has done here. He's built Palantir, a multi-billion-dollar data analytics giant that serves as the exact central nervous system a global world state would use to subjugate us. And the irony is just off the charts. He literally named it after the Seeing Stones from Tolkien's mythology, artifacts that inevitably serve a corrupting, centralized dark force. So they both see the threat perfectly. Where they fiercely disagree, though, is how to fight it. Let's move to Section 2, the critic, Damien Walter. Let's look at the first fighter in this arena. Operating out of Bali as a digital nomad and former Guardian columnist, Walter has spent years analyzing the cultural and economic implications of modern internet phenomena, really positioning himself as a primary analyst of this 21st century mythos. But Smith, our architect, sees Walter's role very differently. He argues that Walter is essentially using his media background and this special forces librarian persona to weave an institutional mythos. In Smith's view, Walter's storytelling functions as a modern soma, the pacifying drug from Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. The argument is that the critic pacifies the public with endless literary theory and debate, basically acting as a narrative distraction, while the actual physical surveillance architectures are quietly being built all around us. See, Walter's main weapon is the rhetoric of story. He passionately warns us about late-stage capitalist dystopias, predicting that a kleptocratic elite will try to survive a slow-grinding apocalypse in these fully automated luxury network states, treating the rest of humanity as disposable biochips to just power their matrix. His whole approach is ideological, focusing on the cultural rejection of what it means to be human, and trying to rally resistance through awareness. But then we pivot to Section 3, the architect, Kyle McLean-Smith. Smith looks at that exact same technological nightmare, the surveillance state, the transhumanist ambitions of Silicon Valley, and responds not with coping mechanisms or essays from Bali, but with executable code, technical standards, and actual legal engineering. Just look at his functional authority here. This is U.S. Patent 12,066,442, granted for a hierarchical script database. We're talking a massive shift from literary philosophy to hard, undeniable engineering. Smith's framework, known as SeedTreeDB, doesn't just critique the system, it offers a fundamentally different way to structure data itself. Instead of writing stories, Smith is building what he calls reproducing automata. He's doing this by unifying nouns and verbs, meaning the data and the logic required to process that data live in the exact same structural layer. In a traditional system, your database and your application logic are separated, which creates a ton of friction. But in Smith's recursive Pythagorean metal data structure, a node can respond to an external event by autonomously spawning a new child node that contains both the data and the script. It's a fully dynamic, self-evolving database. Now, to keep this massive, growing system from crashing or getting stuck in some infinite loop, Smith grounds the whole thing in pure mathematics. By utilizing integer approximations of irrational constants, specifically the tan phi over 2 scaling sequence H32860 from the OEIS, Smith ensures this system experiences non-terminating organic growth. The math literally acts as the DNA for the system, ensuring it never hits a static loop and can just scale endlessly without any centralized intervention. Which brings us to Section 4, Engineering Legal Abundance. Now, you might be asking yourself, how does a mathematical database actually fight back against a global surveillance state or bureaucratic friction? How does any of this apply to a real-world copyright dispute? Well, this is where it gets absolutely fascinating. Smith takes a concept called acceleration-driven clause learning, or ADCL logic, and applies it directly to law. In computer science, ADCL is a calculus used to drastically reduce the length of proofs. Applied to legal engineering, Smith shows how an impossibly long, convoluted bureaucratic proof of, say, 10,001 steps can be mathematically accelerated into just 3 steps. He is engineering what he calls pure legal abundance. Think of his overarching strategy, defensive acceleration, or DAC, like sawdust versus grease. Traditional legal bureaucracy and institutional gatekeeping, that's the sawdust. It's an expensively clogged gear system designed specifically to slow things down and extract wealth. Smith wants to replace all that sawdust with the frictionless grease of auditable network contracts. Because the endgame here isn't just a theoretical flex to win a YouTube copyright fight. It's a very real economic maneuver. By using mechatronic law and these automated, decentralized databases, Smith is aiming to trigger a literal 99% deflation in legal costs. The goal is to completely disintermediate the paternalistic gatekeepers, the institutional librarians of society who rely on that costly friction to maintain their power over us. Section 5, the mechatronic fork. And this brings us to the ultimate stakes of this explainer. This entire dispute between a storyteller and a coder actually represents a massive geopolitical crossroads. Smith calls this the mechatronic fork. We're at a point in time where the future architecture of our digital and legal lives is actively being decided. On one side, we have the critic's path, an opaque monoculture driven by elite narratives, institutional mythos, and centralized surveillance. And on the flip side, we have the architect's vision, FLOSS, free/libre and open source software, distributed systems powered by auditable, peer-to-peer code. It's literally a battle between those who want to manage the narrative of our decline and those who want to engineer a structural escape route. Which leaves us with one incredibly vital question. As these technologies of control get more and more powerful, which path of the mechatronic fork will you choose to walk down? Are we going to surrender to the narrative pacification of the institutional mythos, settling for just stories about the future? Or will you embrace the executable architecture of a decentralized, mathematically grounded reality? The choice is currently being coded into existence right now. So keep questioning the systems being built around you,